This is the Take a Step podcast, where we help faith-driven young men reject complacency and take purposeful action every day. For this episode, I felt blessed to be able to sit down with Graham Cochrane. For the past decade of Graham's life, he's helped 6 to 7 figure business owners continue to scale and build a thriving business that doesn't consume their lives while doing the work that they love. He's also the author of both How to Get Paid for What You Know and his newest book, Rebel, which is all about doing the work and becoming the person that you feel like God has uniquely designed you to be, even if that takes stepping out against what the crowd does, what the rest of the world typically does. So I know you guys will enjoy this episode. My name's Josh Johnston. Let's take a step. Before we jump into the conversation, I want to give a big shout out to Woodcraft South for sponsoring Take a Step. If there's someone in life that you want to leave an impression on, so if you're in entrepreneurship or sales and you want to impress a top client with a logo engraved gift, or if you want to send a sentimental gift to a spouse, like a custom charcuterie board or cutting board, Woodcraft South designs custom woodwork that just captivates your attention. And not only do they deliver amazing work, but it's a brand that's so easy to get behind because Turner Lee, who's the owner, fully embodies the take a step mentality. He spent so long just working behind a desk and building this unfulfilling life. So he started this passion project in woodworking. And a couple years ago, he decided to take the risk and turn this part-time passion into a full-time business that continues to grow to this day. So if there's anyone you want to leave a lasting impression on, or if you just want a custom decor piece to elevate your workspace, you got to check out Woodcraft South. The link to their Instagram will be in the show notes below. Check them out, ask for Turner, and let him know you heard about him from Take a Step. Let's get right into the episode. Graham, I appreciate you jumping on the Take a Step podcast. It's an honor to have you on the show today.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Josh. Excited.
Yeah, definitely. Excited to kind of get to know a little bit more about you. I've been watching, a lot of what you do in the space of, helping people get paid for what they know, be willing to stand out, do something that they love. I know one of your phrases is how to, what is it? It's work less and live and give more. Is that it?
Yep. You got it.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, looking forward to diving a little bit deeper with you today, but I'd love to get things kicked off just by, giving you the floor to introduce yourself however you think it makes sense.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm a believer, so I'm a Jesus follower. I'm a husband, father of 2 teenage girls. I'm an entrepreneur. And right these days I coach successful business owners who have built something successful on the outside, but inside they're kind of handcuffed to something they don't no longer love. They feel stuck. They feel plateaued. They're on the path to burnout, and they actually want more growth and more success and more impact, but they feel like stuck in how to do that. So I'm helping these guys and gals simplify, reorient their business around their personality, their season of life, which interestingly changes. And I don't know about you, but whether you're in business for yourself or you have a career that you were excited about a few years ago, you might have changed. Right? You might have changed. You're not the same person you were a few years ago. And when that happens, you feel like something's wrong. Why don't I love this anymore? What's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. You've grown, you've evolved, you've changed. Maybe you got married, maybe you have kids, maybe your kids are a different season. Maybe the economy shifted and what was working isn't working. Seasons change, right? And so helping people feel the freedom to change with the seasons and to adapt their business to fit that. That's a big part of what I love to do, is help people earn more, have more impact, but really I have a heart for helping people love exactly what they're doing every single day. They get up, they can't freaking wait to do it. And they also aren't identified by it. So they don't become workaholics because they can set it down because it's not who they are. It's just something they love to do. So I do that through coaching, I do that through books and speaking and content on the Graham Cochrane Show podcast. Awesome.
You said a couple things there at the end that I resonate so much with. One was, obviously loving what you do every day, finding fulfillment in what you do, and then also the component of identity as well, right?
Yeah.
And we can definitely get into that later. I know in your most recent book, Rebel, you talk a lot about that. So we'll get into that later in the show. But I resonate with finding fulfillment in what you're doing so much, because for me, my background was, I was right when I graduated college, got into the corporate world, was working 9 to 5, working for a paycheck, and, was unfulfilled in a certain role. So I thought it was the company, right? I thought, the company wasn't what I needed. Jumped in with a bigger Fortune 500 company. I thought that was going to solve all my problems, having the long-term benefits and security for my family. And about the same time, like a year and a half in, came to the same conclusion on just like, why am I so burnt out? Why am I so overwhelmed? Well, I realized that I wasn't doing anything based on anything I had a true passion or true purpose for. And that's when I realized I need to start doing something that's really in line with how God has uniquely wired me. And I think all of us need that at some point. But for you, obviously, the entrepreneurial life is something that you've been, you really sink your teeth in for the last, feels like, decade of your life. And that life is because I talked about security, for me, like being part of corporate America, jumping in with a job where you have your growth trajectory, you're going to make your salary every 2 weeks. So tell me a little bit about how you mentally handled the side of things where you have to create everything you make. That there's a lot of uncertainty that comes into play when people are trying to, they want to pursue this entrepreneurial lifestyle, but they also know that they need to provide, whether if it's for themselves or their family. So tell me how you handled that when you originally stepped out on this entrepreneurial life.
Yeah, man, I would say I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I would say I was too scared to be an entrepreneur. I like a paycheck every 2 weeks. So I was more interested in how do I manage the paycheck I have every 2 weeks? How do I steward that well? And I'm grateful for that, because the first few years of marriage for me, I learned how to manage money, and we learned how to save and give and invest and budget and all those things. So having a paycheck was great, because then all I had to think about was what to do with the money once it came into my bank account. Those are valuable skills. But it took a giant economic collapse, the global recession, 2007, 8, 9, for me to lose 2 jobs in 10 months and be on food stamps for 18 months to jump into entrepreneurship. So it's funny. I mean, maybe you've found that there's that moment in your life where something bad happens. I'll put bad in quotes. Something non-desirable happens, and it forces you to make a decision that you wouldn't have made a decision otherwise, that sends you on a path and a trajectory that you may not have chosen if the circumstances were quote unquote good, but so much good comes out of it. Much like you classic story in the Bible, Joseph, it was very bad that he was, his brothers tried to kill him. And then when they reneged on that, they sold him into slavery. And then it was very bad that he got accused of rape falsely and thrown into prison. It was very bad that he was in prison for, I don't know, a decade maybe. But he ultimately became the second in command of Egypt, very wealthy, very powerful, and got to save his entire family and the entire Jewish people, which continued the legacy which led us to Jesus. So he even understood that at the end of Genesis, right? What you meant for evil, God meant for good. And he's
Genesis
talking to his brothers.
50:20. It's one of my favorite verses in the whole Bible.
Right? It's such a powerful statement of, okay, evil things can happen to us from external circumstances, or even people who intended evil. But God can turn them around for good. And he just had a powerful perspective. And so for me, yeah, it took something bad to force me into entrepreneurship. I'm so glad it happened. I never wish that on anybody, that you lose 2 jobs in 10 months right after you bought your first house and had your first child, right after moving 1,000 miles away from home and knowing nobody except for the people you came with, a handful of people. So I don't wish that on anybody, but man, I'm so glad that was God's story for me, because I was introduced to something I had no experience with, which was going into business for yourself. That was almost 16 years ago. And I've been able to then build 2 multi-million-dollar businesses and create a life where I never even dreamed was possible, where I can like take my kids to school, pick them up from school, take Fridays off with my wife every week, take weekends off every evening. I'm home for dinner, never have to travel unless I want to, and therefore can value my time when I do travel, like make sure this is worth my time because I have control over that, and then be able to do work that is meaningful to me. I didn't think any of this was possible. And so, yeah, man, that's what forced me to do it. But if you've ever felt, man, the fear to jump into entrepreneurship, it's a real fear, because you are trading the illusion of security and safety. And it is an illusion. Anytime there's a tough economy or downsizing, or the industry shifts, or you get replaced by AI or whatever, if it's not something, it's something else. There's no real security, but it is an illusion. And there is maybe a security for a moment. You're trading that, and that is valuable maybe, for the potential of so much more. But it is the potential, because then there's the potential of a downside. And so there is no growth without risk. There is no reward without risk. So you can't live a riskless life. That's not the goal. But the goal is to look at, okay, this this negative thing might happen if I start a business. And that's what everyone wants to point to. Like, do you know the statistics of how many businesses fail? Do you know blah, 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 blah? Because most people are programmed and our brains are wired to keep us safe, not to help us thrive, right? So the people that love you, the people that care about you are going to be the ones that will tell you this is not going to work because they're looking at the potential risk. And there is that potential risk. It's not that we're in denial. It's just that the reward, the potential reward is so much greater. And I would rather look at that and say, well, that is a risk, but there's so much more on the other side of that. Whereas if I stay here, the pro is I have some sense of security and safety, but the risk is I could be replaced. I could be let go. I have no control over my future. I have no real growth. I have a stair-step growth. There's no exponential growth. And it's going to be hard to be incredibly wealthy, generous, and feel the autonomy and freedom that I would have by having money, because money gives you options and power. A lot of times what I like about money is that I can say no to things that I probably would have said yes to 15 years ago. So now I have choice, and choice and freedom is super valuable. So yeah, you give up something to take the leap into business, but you gain so much more, and it's not guaranteed and it's not easy, but anybody can do it. And I think the rewards are worth it.
Yeah. And one of my favorite quotes that I heard recently by Ryan Serhant, I'd rather regret the things I did than the things I never tried. And I hear that, and that goes so in line with Take a Step, for example, because with my main messaging behind Take a Step, it's, there's no need to have everything figured out before you take the initial action, right? Like there's very, very few people know exactly, like you said, people evolve. Like you said at the very beginning, people evolve, people change. What you like evolves, what you learn and what you know evolves over time. And if you expect to have everything perfect before you ever take action in the first place, then you're likely never going to take action because no plan is ever perfect. Donald Miller says, those that take action on a bad plan will go way further than those that never take action on a great plan.
Right, because the idea of wanting it to be perfect or have it figured out or have all the steps lined up before you take action is another manifestation of the need to control.
Yeah.
So here's the secret, right? And we could all go home after this, right? And this is the lesson I'm trying to still learn today. We have no control. And at the moment you can let go of the need to control is the moment that you can have joy and freedom and purpose and impact and actual success in life. So it's this illusion of control that will hold so many of us back, and control will manifest differently for some people. For some people, it looks like perfectionism. For some people, it looks like unlimited research. I got to research every possible outcome before I take a step. For some people, it's I need someone who's done it the way I've done it to sign off on it so I know that this is a legitimate model. This is part of what was hard with my story is I was starting something in 2009 that I didn't know was a real business, aka online courses, content. There were actually some people doing it back then, but not enough that I knew of the industry. I was literally making it up as I went, and it was scary. It's not like becoming a realtor or becoming a stockbroker or becoming a life insurance agent or whatever it is where you've seen the model and say, okay, I know people can succeed in this. Yeah. So now it's just a matter of whether I'm going to succeed in it, but the model's been proven. I didn't have a model I was even following. That's frightening, right? And so like that, but some people, that's what control can look like for them. As long as there's a model I can follow. But friend, God will call you sometimes into a thing where there is no model. I mean, you might be the first person to go do it. And it might be that God's saying, hey, do this now before it becomes popular. You'll become a pioneer. Or do this now before you even see a model, because there's someone I want you to meet in the pursuit of this thing that's going to be beneficial to even the next thing. So that takes a lot of guts and a lot of giving up control. So I think, what do you want more? Control, or do you want joy, freedom, impact, and all the other things? You can't have both.
Yeah, agreed. And, the space that you've really dug into is what you wrote your first book on, right? How to get paid for what you know, helping people in the thought leader space monetize what they know, what their expertise is in. In that space, when you look at it today, there's so much content out there on motivation, on inspiration. In what I've seen from you in the past, 2 to 3 years since I've been following your content, is there's a lot of practical and tactical advice that's not the fluff that you get in the industry, right? There's a lot of, things that you can take away and go implement today in order to see results. So how have you stayed away from the motivation, the rah-rah content that people can get so tired of? Because the hard part about it is that's what, captures attention. That's what gets clicks.
Right.
That's what, people will be drawn to up front. But what I've seen, and I'm sure what you've seen, is that's not what actually is going to generate revenue. So in your experience, tell me how you've kind of stayed in your lane of staying very practical and tactical with your teaching.
Yeah, it's a great question, Josh. I mean, I think for me, it's just the way I'm wired. Like I can't not tell you the steps. All I can teach is what I've already experienced and what I know to work. So I'm not making stuff up, right? So if I know there's steps to get a result, I'm going to share those. I wouldn't hide those because I would want someone to just tell me, if you know how to do it, tell me how to do it. So that's part of my nature is I'm incredibly practical. I want to know the steps, so I want to teach the steps. I want every piece of content you come in contact with from me to be immensely valuable and helpful to you. Now, there's different ways to quantify value. So I think inspiration is valuable. I think people need to be inspired. There's a reason why I heard Brendan Burchard say, I was at a small event with like 6 of us and Brendan Burchard, and he said something in passing that I wrote down because I just thought it was exactly accurate. It's just like a data point. He said, inspiration guys get paid more. And I think because inspiration actually is more powerful for a lot of people, and it's more consumable by people. You can be inspired and not have to take action and find that was valuable. So I think there's something to inspiration being valuable in the marketplace. But I think they all kind of go together. If I got on YouTube and just started to tell you the facts and the steps and the practical tips, it might help the right person who already knows that they need those steps and already has gotten themselves mentally to a place to apply those steps. But it's not going to help the person that's living in doubt. Can I do this? Is this for me? I'm afraid to do this. So I think maybe it's Myron Golden that said like mindset, skill set, then tool set, right? There's kind of an order of, I can't get someone to take action until they've changed their mindset around it. It's hard to give someone the steps to start a business if they don't believe that they can do it and the business is going to fail. That's a mindset problem. So let's address the mindset and let's inspire them to think differently. Then let's think about the skills that they're going to need to do that before we even then jump into the tools or the tactics or the tech stack or the whatever's working now. Those things are always last in line. You got to change your mindset, and that's going to change then the skill set you need, which is going to lead you to the tool set. So I think ideally content would involve all of those. Maybe you can't shove all of them perfectly into one piece of content, although I think it's possible. Like look at a 60-minute keynote or 45-minute webinar, same thing. It should have all of those elements. It should address the mindset. It should be belief shifting, because once they have the right belief, okay, I believe this premise, this makes sense. I think I can do this. So for me, if people think I need millions of dollars to start a business or I need to take out a loan to start a business, well, before I tell you the steps, I'm going to have to change your belief system to show you can start a business with $0, leveraging the internet and your mind, and you can use free tools to get in front of your ideal customer and sell something that you could create for free. That's going to be, I have to convince them of that belief first before I give them the steps and the tools and that kind of stuff. So you want to shift their beliefs, empower them to believe that not only it's possible, but it's possible for me and I can do this, and then give them the steps to go do it.
Yeah, no, that's great. And we've referenced it a few times, and I want to really dive in. You've written 2 books, right? Are those the only 2 you've written?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So how to get paid for what you know. And then what I want to spend a lot of the time of our conversation is talking about your newest book, Rebel. But for how to get paid for what you know, when did you feel qualified to be able to write a book on that topic? Because there's the concept of imposter syndrome, right? Where people feel like they have a certain amount of expertise, but do I really have enough to monetize telling people what I know? So when did you feel qualified to write that? And tell me a little bit about why you wrote that book.
So the book for me came after the business. So I had been teaching what's inside that book for 5 years formally, probably 7 or 8 years total. So it's the model I've been teaching inside my courses, inside my programs, inside my coaching. So I felt very qualified because that material has helped people generate hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars individually for people. The book was more of a passion project. Like I've always wanted to write a book, always wanted to be an author. and just kept saying, oh, one day I'll write a book. One day I'll write a book. And it was a Valentine's Day dinner with my wife. And she said, you keep saying one day you'll write a book. Why don't you just write a freaking book? You know? And I was like, oh yeah, I guess there's some arbitrary moment in time I thought I might write it. So I was like, I need to learn what that would involve. I don't know how you get published or get a book deal, or because I knew I wanted to get traditionally published. So that set me on the journey of just wanting to pursue that as a passion. Once I got a book deal, well, before I got the book deal, I was talking with a buddy of mine who's written a ton of books, who's kind of coaching me through the process. I got an agent, and we were thinking about what book proposal I should put together. What are all the things I could write about? And we decided, and then the publisher agreed, that the most logical first book for me would be what I was already teaching on YouTube and in my courses. And so that's where the idea for how to get paid for it, came from, as like the logical first book. And it was also a really good time because I signed that book deal in early 2021. I was creating the proposal in the middle of the pandemic in 2020, signed the book deal in February 21 and wrote the manuscript in 21. And that was an interesting year where I had been selling online courses and products for over a decade. But now the whole world woke up to this thing, and a lot of people who've become really big on the internet jumped on the internet then because they had to make a living. And there was this increased appetite for understanding how to monetize your knowledge. People were seeing it more often, but they didn't know the model. So it was a great time for that book to come out because it just gave people the practical steps to do it. And but to the question though, imposter syndrome, because everyone feels that. And if you're listening to this, you've felt that throughout your life. Anytime you've done something new, something that you feel like a certain qualification is necessary, it's all made up. I mean, everything is actually made up. And so that's what's interesting about it is, to that question, I never felt qualified to teach business, even though I had generated millions of dollars online. I never felt qualified to teach music recording, which was my first business, the Recording Revolution, back in 2009, even though I had an audio degree and had been playing in recording studios for years. I just felt like, well, that I do the thing, but I don't know if I am qualified to teach it, because maybe just the way I do it is just the way I do it. Maybe it's not the way to do it, which was an interesting lie that I was believing, which is there is a way to teach something or a way to do something. So if for example, if you had a health journey you went on and you lost a bunch of weight and got in shape, you could start an incredible business and make millions of dollars helping other people do the same. Even though you've never been certified, you don't have a nutrition background, you don't feel like you're a health fitness coach, guru, whatever expertise you're looking for, you don't need it, because all that matters is that you have found a way to get a result that other people want. And it's a way. It's not the way. There is no the way. The only the way is Jesus, the way, the truth, the life. Everything else is like there's a million ways. That's the good news. There's a million ways at work. And people are going to look for the way they want to follow. There's a million ways to make money on the internet selling what you know. Not everybody wants to do it my way. There's other ways that they could follow, so they won't listen to me. But the same is for you. So if you know how to get a result, you got a result for yourself or for your friends, you might as well start leveraging that and turn it into a business, because guess what? You can. All online business is, in this kind of thought leadership space, is transformation. Can you help me go from here to here? Can you help me solve this problem and get me this result? And it's up to the market to decide if they like your way of doing it versus somebody else's. That's not your job. Your job is just to serve the one type of person you can really serve well. And it's probably the person you once were.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense when you put it that way, because it's all just based on your experience. Your experience may be different than someone else, but your experience still got you the result that you got. And I think like the power, and I want to hear your take on personal branding with that too, because I know obviously having a brand and people buying into you, because there's, like you said, there's so many ways to get to the same result. But why would someone buy into you? Well, it's because of the brand that you've built, what your reputation is, people resonating with you, and they want to learn from you. So how do you leverage personal branding when it comes to people buying into the way that you're teaching?
Yeah, so this is what's so powerful about the moment we're in right now is I think personal branding and showing up authentically as who you are online is going to be more valuable than ever before. So the great news is you don't actually have to try as hard as you thought you did. All you have to really do is really fully be you on the internet, because there's plenty of gurus out there, and people are kind of tired of the glossy put together guru. So it's not that you want to be sloppy and not put
Yeah.
together. It's just that there's no image you have to pretend to be. It's really actually going to be more profitable for you to decide, this is who I am. This is my personality. This is what I believe. And I'm going to show up fully online and like really press into that. So for example, if you're really bombastic and you drop F-bombs all the time, which I hope your audience doesn't. I doubt they are if they're a Christian man, but maybe. But you know, I can see the non-believer who's like, this is just who I am. I drop F-bombs. My personal branding would say, don't clean it up. Just be you. Like some people are going to be very turned off by that, probably me. But some people are going to be very attracted by that. And you can see that with Mark Manson's book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. Like that. Yeah. He started a whole, like, Homeboy sold millions of copies of books because he put the F word on the cover. And then everybody else was like, maybe I should put the F word in my title. And that works for a moment till now it doesn't work. But it worked because it was his idea. And it was actually a viral blog post that went viral first before he got a publishing deal on it. And the book did great. But at the same time, if you're very shy, if you're very calm, calculated, and like, press into that if your personality. So the great news is the goal to build a business and personal branding isn't to attract the whole world. It's to attract the people that are like you and want to learn from you and hear your unique voice. So you don't have to try as hard. The one thing you do have to know though, and all brands have to do this in any kind of industry, is who are you going to serve? What problem are you going to solve? What outcome do these people want? That's pretty much it. So you draw people in with the outcome. So the outcome I will sell like these days is how to make money online with your knowledge and expertise. Let's say if you're a beginner, or in these days also pressing into how do I build a 7 or 8 figure business and work 20 hours a week or less and love every day of it. So that's more of an outcome that I'm going to promise and talk about. That's what's going to attract the customer first. Because like, oh, this is something that I want or a problem that I need help with. Then they're going to look into you and see if they resonate. And that is the right language. I think you use, Josh, resonate. And that's what's so cool is you don't have to be anything other than you are. You actually just want to let your personality divide the room, repel the people that you're not supposed to work with and attract the people that you are supposed to work with. Because now they say, okay, I've got 5 girls or 5 guys on the internet that I could learn this outcome from, but I really resonate with her. And the other 4 people I could give or take, right? And so it's like, I'm going to pick her as my coach or my mentor or the person I'm going to watch all her shows or listen because I resonate with her. They could all give me the same outcome, but I resonate with her. And that's personal branding in a nutshell. Is my friend Rory Vaden says it, that your personal brand is the digitization of your reputation. Mm-hmm. It's just who you are. You already have a personal brand, whether you know it or not. It's just how do you intentionally show up as that reputation on the internet? Own it. Don't try to reach everybody. Try to reach the people that like you and the way you talk about it. So for example, I'll share my faith often. I'll mention that I'm a Christian. I'll make statements that I think are universally true from my Christian worldview. And other people might say, well, I don't believe that. And they may not like that and they might leave. Others might really like that, go, oh, this guy's a Christian. That's great because I don't want to learn business from a non-Christian. So then they're really attracted. And then there's people in the middle that could take or leave my faith, but it doesn't bother them. Then I'll also say things like, if you can't make 7 figures a year working 20 hours a week or less, you're doing it wrong. I'll say things like that. And that'll really piss off a lot of people that are working 80 hours a week and they're only making $200K. What the heck is he talking about? But the right people will go, man, there's something there for me. I'm very interested in that. I actually don't want to work a ton of hours. I don't get a badge of pride working a ton of hours. Well, there is a lot of people on the internet that actually, they want to brag about how many hours they work. I want to brag about how few hours I work. And so I'm going to divide and attract. And then I'll make fun of people that say you need to run paid ads to make a lot of money. And I'll say, I've made tens of millions of dollars online. I've never run a single paid ad. So that is a divisive message, but it's what I truly believe. But it's going to repel the people that just they want the ad strategy. There's plenty of people that'll give you that. I'm not against ads. It's just not what I've needed to use. But then the other people that are more interested in the organic content and that strategy are going to be really attracted. So I'm not creating a personal brand. I'm just expressing exactly what Graham thinks and believes on the internet, but being intentional about it and making sure I am speaking to the outcome people want, the problem that they have, and then letting them decide if they want to do business with me or not.
Yeah. And I one thing you mentioned, Roy Vaden, there's another quote that he has that speaks directly to this. You're most uniquely positioned to serve the person that you once were.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that in a lot of what I do. And I didn't even realize that. And like, I heard him say that, and it was kind of like a full circle moment for me. I'm like, holy crap, that's exactly what I'm putting out. Is like, I needed to hear this, and I still need to hear this. And I think that allows the people that you're really trying to reach see you for your authentic self. Which, going back to the concept of resonance, I think people resonate with seeing people in their authentic state. Like you talked about, you want your content to be clean, but I think we've moved past this phase of like, make sure the edits are perfect, make sure you have these jump cuts placed in specific moments. Dan Martell is somebody that speaks a lot to that when he talks about just like taking out your phone, talk about what's on your mind at the moment, something that you're passionate about, and post it. And for me, like, perfect example for me, like this, I have my studio set up in my garage, in a little space that we built out. And I remember when I started putting content, I would be like, all right, I need to make sure like the backdrop looks real. I need to make sure you're not seeing the garage rails over my head when I'm putting something out. And now I see it as like people like to see that authenticity. It's funny because they won't know it if you do make it clean enough. But at the end of the day, I think people love seeing the fact that you didn't take the time to try to make it look like something it's not. I think that speaks directly to what you were saying a second ago. But what I want to jump to and spend a little bit of time on is your most recent book, Rebel, because this is a book that it's on my reading list, and I need to read it. But I've heard you talk about it so much, and every time I hear it, it's just like, this is exactly what I needed to know, and exactly what I talk a lot about, in relation specifically to like just not being afraid to stand out. And I don't want to take a lot of your explanation, because let's start off by this. I want to hear why you wrote Rebel.
Well, I wrote it because of a really interesting moment I had with John Gordon, best-selling author, top keynote speaker. He wrote The Energy Bus and The Carpenter. I spent a day with him thinking I was going to get coaching on public speaking. Like, hey, help me become a top keynote speaker. What do I need to know as I'm moving into this speaking realm? This is a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. I don't know, losing track. And the first question he said was, well, what's the message of your next book? And I just published How to Get Paid for What You Know. I was like, bro, I literally just released this book last year. And I haven't thought that far ahead. Like, yeah, I want to write more books, but what does this have to do? I want to know how to be a great speaker. And he's like, no, you got to know what's the message of your next book. And so we spent a couple hours going back and forth on what I could write about next. Do I want to write another business book? Do I want to write about what my TED Talk was going to be about? At the time, it hadn't come out yet, but that was about generosity and why givers are happier and have less money stress. I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to be the generosity guy. I don't know. There's a lot of things that are meaningful to me that I could write about. And we couldn't get anywhere. And so he finally said, well, just tell me your life story. So I start to talk about my dream as a kid to be a rock star, and how everyone told me to go to college. I was like, I don't want to, what's the point of college if I'm going to pursue music? I don't need a degree. It's a 4-year waste of time while I could be pursuing the career. And so I said, no, I don't want to go to college. And then I didn't get the rock star deal. That didn't happen. And I did regular jobs and I hated it. And then I lost my jobs. And then everyone said, go get another job during the recession. I said, forget it. I'm going to start a business. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just telling him this story. And he interrupts me and he goes, bro, you don't do what people tell you to do you? Like, you're a rebel. You know that, right? And I was like, a rebel? I was like, I have never used that word to describe myself, right? But the moment he said it, it was like I better understood my own story through that word. Because the contrast to being a rebel isn't someone that's trying to break the law or do something bad. A rebel is trying to do something against what they believe is wrong. They see one path, and I would say that that's conformity. Everyone's supposed to do this. You're supposed to go to college. You're supposed to move up the corporate ladder. Yep. You're supposed to work a 9 to 5. You're supposed to, whatever you're supposed to do, you should do. I looked at that path and said, well, those people don't look very happy to me. Those people look really stressed out to me. And that doesn't feel like it would be me either. Like, I feel like I could go do that, but I would be going against who I am. I kind of want to go over here and play over here. And turns out that's a very rebellious thing, to go against the current of conformity of either the culture at large, let's say the United States where I live, or the mini culture of your friend group, your family, the people in your church. Anytime you go against what everyone else is doing or saying is right, it kind of messes with people, and you kind of feel guilty too. Like, I should just be like everybody else, because we don't want to stand out. We don't want to be different. We just want to be accepted at the end of the day. We want people to like us. But it's really hard to deny who you are sometimes, and the dreams God's put in your heart, and the vision that you might have, even if it's not very clear, just to be accepted by everybody else. And that's a tension that we all face. And I have faced that multiple times in my life. I face that even now. Like, I'm in a series of events in my business and career where I'm evolving and pivoting even more. And there's people that want me to stay the way I was in 2018, 19, 20, 21. And the Graham of 2025 and beyond is like, I'm going different places, guys. Like, I have bigger things on my heart. And so you might be unhappy. My old customers might be unhappy with me, or the people that used to like my show on YouTube might not be happy with me anymore. But I have to be okay with disappointing them to pursue the vision God's put in my heart. So all that to say, this all came about in a one-day conversation with John Gordon. And it's like the moment he said that, he's like, bro, this could be a great book. I knew he was right. And I also knew that the Holy Spirit was saying, you need to write this book. And so for a couple of hours, we just noodled on the concept. 48 hours later, God gave me a framework, because I was trying to reverse engineer my story, because I'd never taught this before. I was like, I've lived this, but how would I teach this to people? So God gave me this framework when I looked back on my life. I pitched it to my publisher 4 days after that in just like an email. It wasn't even a formal proposal. It was like, this is all I got. And they signed it on the spot. They loved it. They said, when can you write the manuscript? And so I said, I don't know. I guess I should get started. So that started the process of writing a very different book than the first one, which I alluded to. I'd been teaching the principles and how to get paid for what you know for years and living them for longer. This was a book I'd never taught this material before. So I really needed the Holy Spirit to kind of show me what he wanted in this book. And that was both exciting and frustrating at the same time, because Josh, there were moments when I'm writing and I'm like, bro, I have no idea what I'm doing here. I don't even know if I could fill a book. Is this just a long blog post? Like, what is this, you know? And so I had writer's block a lot and imposter syndrome out the wazoo, because this felt very much like personal development, mindset, personal growth. And I didn't have a lot of history teaching this stuff. So I didn't have like a confidence that I could lean on of like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about. I've done this before. So instead I really had to rely on the Holy Spirit. But bro, he gave me so much in these spurts. There'd be a week or two where I get all these ideas, and then weeks where there was nothing. Turned in the manuscript to my editor who had worked on the first book. I said, this might be a giant mess, because I feel like it's a lot of great ideas. I don't know if they really are consistent and coherent. But after a month of her reviewing it, she came back and said, this is one of the most well-organized and communicated manuscripts I've ever edited. And I really just point back to the Holy Spirit who guided me through the process. And it really cracked open, when people got their hands on the book, a huge need, which is people need permission to be who they are, to be who God made them. In fact, I would submit to you that the moment you step into more fully who you are, who God designed you to be, and live in alignment with that, which is what the book helps you do, you'll find more fulfillment than ever before, more success. You'll be able to have more satisfaction in your work, in your life from a day-to-day, and you'll be of more service to people when you're living the way God designed you. I mean, isn't that the whole premise of the way God designed people? Is like, I gave a bit of my essence and image and creativity to each of you, not all of it, but I need you, Josh, to be you so that you can impact the people I designed you to impact. And if you try to pretend to be like Graham, well, then what are we doing here? Like, what a waste of your time and their time and my creativity, God's saying. And so I think there's some freedom and empowerment there to like, hey, who the heck am I? And that's really the premise of the book. Dan Miller, the late Dan Miller, who actually endorsed my first book, brilliant mind. He wrote 48 Days to the Work You Love. He's always said that the two most important questions in life you need to answer are, who am I and why am I here? So one question is an identity question. The second question is a purpose question. And your identity, as my friend Mike Zeller says, precedes your destiny, right? Identity first, then you know what to go do with your life. People want to say, well, what's my purpose? But they have never figured out who they are. And so this book just walks you through a 5-step framework to figure out who you are so that you can show up in your purpose in life.
Yeah. And Dallas Willard, another great thought leader in the faith space, is, you know, one of my favorite quotes: the most important thing in this life is not what you do, it's who you're becoming.
Yes.
And like, I can talk about that whole explanation for forever. Because that was me, growing up and, on into my early 20s, I was someone that was constantly seeking validation, that was constantly seeking approval, that was making decisions based off of what everybody else was saying I should make my decisions like. And what I realized was me choosing to make decisions that are that's just seeking the approval, that's trying to fit in with, what everyone else is doing, that's trying to live the life that everyone else is doing, is just going to build a life based on how someone else thinks I should build my life rather than what's actually fulfilling for me individually. And to tie that back into our faith and our identity, God's uniquely wired each person on purpose for a specific purpose. And if we don't first discover and come to the resolution on what is that purpose, what is my true identity, what makes me unique, then I can never take action on that to begin with. So I think like you said, it's a two-part with two different questions. I've also heard two other questions: what do I want to be known for, and what am I known for? Identifying first, what do I want my reputation to be? What do I want my brand to be? And then what am I actually known for? And that kind of bridges the gap between those two. So for you, because I have my own story, but like, why is it so hard for people to make the decision to start living a life that's different than how everyone else are living?
Yeah, I mean, we alluded to one of them. We want to be accepted, so it's easier just to keep your head down. Like literally in certain countries, there's this idea called tall poppy syndrome, whereas like if you're like the flower that's grown taller than all the other flowers in the field, people want to chop you down and just be like, don't be too successful.
Yep.
Don't be too different. And that's more prevalent in certain cultures and countries. I've coaching clients all over the world. So I've had clients in the UK and in Australia, and like I can see it's more prevalent there. And they'll even look to America and say, man, I wish I were in America. Because in America, you can kind of go for it and you can kind of climb the ladder and be successful, and the community will rally behind you. And maybe that's more true here than there, but I still feel even here, people don't want you to be too successful or too different or too ambitious. And part of that is, we can go down a rabbit trail and we don't have to, but when you go chase your dream and you go pursue your purpose, people, they take it personally because they almost feel like it's offensive to them. Well, I'm not really pursuing my dream. I kind of gave up on my dream. And so some of it is instinctual. They don't realize that they want to pull you down. It's like that story that John Maxwell tells about the monkeys, that they did that study, right, where they put all the monkeys in this room and then they put a banana at the top of this thing, and the monkeys that would climb up to try to get the banana, they'd blast them with a hose and knock them down until every monkey had tried to get the banana and experienced being blasted down. They stopped trying after that because they realized this is pointless. And then they slowly would introduce new monkeys into the cage that had never been blasted with water, and they would see the banana and of course want to go up and get the banana. And eventually the other monkeys would pull the new monkeys down to try to protect them. You're going to get blasted with water. Right. And so then those monkeys that had been pulled down would pull down the other new monkeys that would come in. It became a thing where now no one was experiencing the negative effects, but everyone was trying to prohibit the other person from going up there, and they no longer knew why. It was just what they had been accustomed to. So sometimes it's that the conformity is just, we're in the river. We don't realize that we're in the river. I think a lot of it, bro, is that we're just tired. At the end of the day, if you're working hard, if you have a family, if you're involved in your church, you're tired. And so it's easier to just abdicate our decision-making. How should we manage our money? What should we do with our time? How should we parent our kids? How should I think about career? We abdicate those decisions to the people around us. Well, what are they doing? What are our neighbors doing? What are our friends doing? What's our pastor doing? Like, what are my parents doing? And we don't realize we're doing this, but it's really decision abdication. You're giving up your responsibility to make a decision for you and your family by just adopting what everyone else is doing, because it's easier. And there's no judgment there. It just literally is easier because we're tired. It's easier short term. It's harder long term, right? And so I think those are two massive reasons why we do it. And then the other one is just, this is especially true in the Christian culture, so we can talk about it here for your people, because you get it, is the church has done a really bad job of allowing God's people to be who God made them to be. And there is their own cultural conformity within the church. And then it's even more specific depending on what type of church or denomination you come from. And everyone in your church community, I'm going to speak in blanket terms here, maybe you're in an exception, which I hope you are. Every church community has their own rules and their own culture. And if you step outside of that, they'll pull you back in. And the big message is just make sure you play along, fit in, act like us. There's not enough, in my opinion, emphasis on true diversity and uniqueness. There's not a lot of celebration of what Paul talked about one body, many members. I mean, like it's very scriptural, but there's not enough emphasis on, hey, you're an 18-year-old coming out of the church, or you're a 22-year-old coming out of college, and we're your church community. What is your unique giftings, your passions, your desires, what breaks your heart, what lights up your heart? And there's not enough of figuring that out and mentoring young people that way to then send them off in the path that God has for them. It's more of like, hey, you're either going to be a pastor or you're going to be a heathen and go in the marketplace. And then if you do that, it's like, these are your choices. And then make sure you stay faithful to your spouse, make sure you tithe, make sure you come to church, don't get into trouble, don't look at porn, don't whatever the general rules are. And as long as you check those boxes, that's all they seem to care about. That's a huge disservice to God's plan for humanity, which is, I'm going to make a bunch of very unique people that can come together and get this kingdom, bring heaven to earth, bring the kingdom of heaven to earth. So I think that's a huge reason why we don't pursue all this stuff, is because if you grow up in the church, it kind of snuffs it out of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think people in that environment see that there's these few specific paths that most people take, and it's kind of worked out for them a little bit. They're living a normal life, and so many people, at least people that I know that would listen to a podcast on personal development or take the time to invest in themselves through coaching programs and courses, and even just spend the time to want to grow personally and professionally. Most people in that realm, I would imagine, don't want to live a normal or mediocre life. Most people want to, be extraordinary or be great. And the problem with that is in that space that you're talking about with these specific paths is that, if you make the decisions that everyone else does, you're going to get the results that everyone else gets. Right. Yeah. And in that, on that notion, it's like, if I want to be extraordinary, why would I do what's normal? Why would I make decisions based on what's normal? And it sounds so easy to say, but the actions behind it is what's difficult, because once you actually start taking action, then it's, what are people going to start saying about me? It's, do I have the confidence? Do I know this is actually going to work? Because not a lot of people are doing this. Well, people aren't doing it for a certain reason. It's because it takes more than what the average person is willing to give. How are you getting, I go back to what I said earlier, I'd rather regret the things I did than the things I never tried. I love the title Rebel. Because typically, when you think about rebel, like what you were saying earlier, I think of the bad boy, right? Somebody who's pushing against the status quo, which sounds like a bad thing, but in this context, it's a good thing, right?
Oh, well, think about all the rebels that have changed history. It's Martin Luther King Jr., total rebel. People said, shut up. This is the way things are. Yet he was put on earth by God to step even outside of the ministries. I got to get outside of the church ministry. I need to take this to the nations, and we need to fight the injustice with all this racial inequality in our country. And now we all look at him as, oh, he's brilliant. He was a hero. Wasn't very popular when he was fighting for what he believed in. Amelia Earhart, right? She's like, why is a woman flying planes and trying to set records? Why is she even wearing pants? Literally, even her outfit. But she paved the way for women to view themselves in roles that were only originally for men. A huge rebel that we now respect and applaud what she did. Steve Jobs, Apple, he got fired from his own company because he was too rebellious. Yet he changed the way we interacted with technology, where technology was very cold and calculated and for the elite. He was like, why can't it be beautiful and simple to use and visual and intuitive? He's completely changed so many industries. He was made fun of in the past, and now he's lauded as a genius. And then, of course, the ultimate rebel is Jesus Christ. Yep. Jesus is never did what anybody wanted to do. The religious people didn't like what he did. His own followers disagree with what he did. He never did what people wanted him to do, and he did what people didn't want him to do. And it's not because he was a bad boy or because he loves controversy. It was because he had a very specific purpose. He had a very specific identity, Savior of the world, Son of God, a very specific purpose to save the world and to make a way for us to be connected with the Father forever, and to model for us what the ideal man's supposed to be, submitted to the Father. So he's all these different things. He had an identity and a purpose, and to live out that identity purpose meant, well, you're not going to like everything I do. And to this day, people don't like what Jesus did sometimes. And yet billions of people call him Lord around the world, and he's had more impact than anybody in the world. So yeah, to be a rebel is just by definition to say, it's like we're in a river. If you don't do anything, you're a stick in the stream, right? If you don't do anything, you just wake up and just do the default, you're going somewhere, and you're going wherever the culture is taking you. Your family's culture, your church's culture, your country's culture. So you're going to go somewhere. The question is, do you like where you're going? And so all I'm asking people to do in the book is to step outside of the river for just a moment, step on the river banks, and just look where the current's going and say, do I like where it's going? If you like where it's going, the good news is you can just float and you'll get there. If you don't like where it's going, aka your industry, aka your friend group, aka your church, aka the country and the culture, if you don't like where everyone's going, then to be a mature man is to say, well, where do I want to go? And I look at this through the lens of the 6 core areas of life. Where do I want to be with my work and my vocation? Where do I want to be with my finances, my relationships, my health, physical and mental, my spirituality, and the way I spend my time? Those are sort of the 6 core areas that I chop up life in. What I want for those 6 areas, does it look different? If so, I'm going to have to obviously go in a different direction and have the guts to do that. Most people don't have the guts to do it until they hit a pain point that's painful enough that, like as Dave Ramsey will say, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like when you finally get to that point where like, I'm done with this, that's usually when people change. What I would love for people to do is make that pivot now before it gets to that painful point, and know that this is the most biblical thing you can do. It's not pushing against people and a culture for the sake of pushing against. It's ignore what that side of it feels like. It's more about, who did God make me to be? What is he calling me and my family to do? Can I have the courage to trust him that he will bless me as I pursue those things?
Yeah. To sum up that there, I have one of my favorite quotes. I heard it. It's funny summing up a biblical reference, but it's from someone who's not, a Christian figure. But Chris Williamson on the Modern Wisdom podcast, he said, following the herd makes us feel safe, but something stands out because of contrast. Become extraordinary by being different. And once we can own that, it's like leaving the security of what's comfortable with what everyone else is doing to pursue what's uncomfortable and doing what I'm doing, because I know that it takes standing out. It takes being a rebel to have a little bit of disruption and invoke real change. That's where true growth and true, I don't want to say recognition, but, building a strong brand that makes you unique and your brand unique, that's where it begins. I want to hit on brand one more time before we move past it. So if I'm, or if someone who's listening is at the point where they're saying, building a brand is something I want to do, and they're, at the very beginning, it's just an idea right now. If someone's just getting started, what would you say to someone who is, either just starting an Instagram page or wants to start a newsletter or a blog post? What would you say is something important to focus on for someone who's just starting to build their brand?
Yeah. So let me give you what I call like the perfect client code. So this is something I teach inside of my coaching programs. There's 6 core elements that you need. It's really 3 core, and then there's like 3 sub ones. So first you start with the person. It's always about the who. So you get to choose your who, which is interesting. So think about, especially if you're beginning, who would be the ideal customer? So, and this is fun. You get to make it up. Like, who do you want to serve for the next 10 years? What type of person? What kind of income level are they? Is it men? Is it women? Is it both? Is it entrepreneurs? Is it within the industry you're in? Okay, so like if we're going back to the fitness example, if you want to help people with their fitness journey, what type of people? Like, is it people that just want to lose weight? Is it people that want to build muscle? Is it people that have back pain? Like, one of my brother-in-law helps people literally fitness for back pain is his website. Like, who's the ideal customer? And that kind of goes back to Rory Vaden's quote, "You're most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were." It's not the only person you could serve, but that's probably a good shortcut. But decide the who is and write out a paragraph describing that person. And that's going to give you some clarity and focus. You're going to go look for those types of people, and you're going to speak to that type of person. So who's the ideal person you want to serve? Choose your customers. Don't let them choose you. Otherwise, you're going to have a business you hate, even if it's making money. And then it's harder to leave because it's making money. So the second thing is, so you have the person. then you have the problem. Like, what's the big problem that you feel like you want to help them solve? You could probably help them solve a lot of problems, but what's the main problem? Is it that I'm overweight and unhealthy? Is it that I don't have enough money? Is it that I can't find my spouse? Is it that I don't know how to study the Bible? Is it that I feel like an imposter? Is it that, what is the problem you want to own? Just, you got to pick one, right? And decide what that problem is. And there's plenty of people that have that problem, but just decide the problem you want to solve. The third thing is, what is the dream outcome? Or you could call this the promise that you want to help achieve for people. So for example, for people that want to help people who are busy dads who are overweight and having health issues, the problem is that they don't have the time to work out, or the problem is that they're out of shape and they don't know where to begin, or the problem is that they want to feel attractive to their spouse, but they no longer feel attractive. Then the dream outcome will be, you've got a body that you're so proud of to take your shirt off. You're healthy. You know you're going to live a long time. Like, just paint the dream outcome for those people. So it's one type of person, one problem, and one dream outcome that you're going to provide. That alone gives you your Instagram bio. It gives you the foundation of your programs, because as you'll see in a minute, this is going to be how you frame everything. But this gives you so much clarity. I help this type of person overcome this problem, or help this type of person achieve this type of outcome without, problem that they think would go with that outcome, right? So that's the foundation of it: the ideal person, the problem, the outcome. And then if you imagine it as like a triangle, they connect. So if you connect the ideal person with the problem you want to solve, well, there's going to be pain points that they're experiencing from that problem. So you want to write down what are 3 to 5 pain points that ideal person has because of that problem. So if it's the busy dad that's out of shape example, and the problem is he's out of shape, doesn't know what to do about it, well, there's probably pain points. He's embarrassed to go to the beach. That's a pain point. It's not the problem, but it's a result of the problem. He doesn't want to start working out because he feels like he doesn't even know where to begin, so he doesn't even have a gym membership. He's afraid that he's going to die sooner than he should. He's maybe experiencing, like, he can't run around with his kids. Like, I don't know what you decide what the pain points are. So you write those down. And the other side of it, what are the payoffs that your ideal customer is going to get once they get their dream outcome? So you give that ideal customer the dream outcome, then paint the picture a little bit more. What are the payoffs? Well, when you've become incredibly fit, yeah, you can go to the beach without your shirt off and you feel confident. You can chase around your little kids and not get tired. You're going to live a long time. You're going to inspire your spouse to get into shape. The confidence you have because of your body is going to affect you in the marketplace. You're going to go into your business or your place of work with more confidence because of who you are. You know that you're now a disciplined person, and that's going to show up in higher raise, more customers. These are all things that are true, by the way. Anyway, whatever those payoffs would be, you map those out, 3 to 5 bullet points. And then the final piece is connect the problem to the dream outcome. What are the 3 to 5 steps that you're going to take them through? Or what are the 3 to 5 pillars, or the 3 to 5 things that it takes? And you could be 6 or 7 or 9, whatever, to go from problem to dream outcome. This is your process or your method. And this is completely up to you. This is how did you do it? This is the 6 steps in my first book, How to Get Paid for What You Know. How do you build an online business? I show you my process. For Rebel, it's a 5-step process. It's an acronym. Rebel spells out the 5 steps. People don't want to just know that you can solve their problem and give them the dream outcome. If you can tell them, I have a 6-step process or a 5-step process, I have a method. And if this is bonus points, if you can name the method, just name it. Doesn't matter if you just call it something, bro. Now you're giving people a plan. They can say, wow, Josh can help me go from this to this, get rid of these pain points, experience these payoffs, and he's got a step-by-step plan to get me there. Sold. And all of that shows up in your content online for free. It shows up in your coaching programs. It becomes a book. It becomes a keynote, becomes a TED Talk. Like, it's all the same stuff. And that's your brand in a nutshell, because now you're not confused about who you serve. You're not confused about what problem you solve. You're not confused about what outcome you give them. You're not confused about what pains they're feeling, what payoffs they will have in the end. And you're not confused about how to get them there. And the great news is you can make all this up. And I like to have people put that on a 1 sheet so it's in front of them. And if you already are in business, you're probably already doing this intuitively, but they've never written it down. If you're starting a business, this is the best way you could do it, so that now I know what content to shoot, what to put on my Instagram bio, what to put on my sales copy when I write a sales page, what to put in my coaching programs and how to talk about them, how to talk to people on the airplane about what I do. Well, I help people with this problem achieve this outcome. Oh, well, that makes sense. Well, how do you do that? Well, I have a multi-step process. I tip, and then you walk them through the process. It's fascinating. And that's your brand in a nutshell. And from there, everything spins off.
Yeah. I mean, literally anybody that's listening can literally rewind 10 minutes. And that was a intro to personal branding masterclass. Like the concept, and a lot of the beginning, I hear a lot of similarities between what you're talking about in the story brand framework that Donald Miller talks to, is like connecting the who, the problem, the outcome. For me, I actually recently coined what I call the STEP framework. It's really like the 4 pillars of growth that I call it, but focusing on strength being both physical and mental, tribe, who you surround yourself with, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, kind of thing. E is expertise. What have you been uniquely designed to do, and how are you taking action on that in your professional life? And then P is praise. Who or what is being praised through your life?
Wow.
So that's kind of the framework that I've recently coined within the last couple months. And and I love, like I said at the very beginning of the podcast, it's like so tactical, so practical. So it's so great to hear, things that we can, apply right now at the very beginning, to start building the brand that we ultimately desire to have an impact on the kind of people we want to have an impact on. So thanks for sharing that. To kind of wrap up the episode, a question I asked very in line with the mission behind Take a Step is, you talked a lot about it as far as, we feel like there's this one path as far as you go to college, you get your degree, you get your corporate job, and you work your way up the corporate ladder for years. But for most people that have either been in that life or are currently in that life, there's so much unfulfillment. There's so much burnout that comes into play with that. So from your experience and the people that you coach on a consistent basis, how can someone initiate the action to start living a life that's truly in line with their purpose and their passion?
Yeah. So where I take people first in the book, and we can just go here, is REBEL is an acronym. So the framework in that book is the REBEL, and the R, the first step, is to resolve to dream again. So the first step in identity discovery is desire. You have to look at what you desire, what you dream about, what you want. And so I take people through a 50 dreams exercise in the book, where you write down 50 things you want.
I bet that takes a while.
It depends on the personality. Some people fly through this. People like me, it took me a week to do this the first time I did this years ago. But what you're creating is you're forcing yourself to stop and think, because we're just too busy to even think about what we want. There's some things that we know we want. They're at the very top of our mind. So maybe the first 3 to 10 might come quickly for you. But to get 50, you really have to slow down. You really have to pay attention to what you want. And I love Tim Ferriss's question, if you're getting stuck here on like what to even jot down, would be, if you were the smartest person in the world and it were impossible to fail, what would you dream of doing, being, or having? So take away any it's impossible. Just suspend belief for a second. In those 3 categories, what do you want to do? What do you dream of being? What do you dream of having? And then just let the ideas flow, big or small. Put down some massive ones and put down some small ones. Like my dad was having a hard time filling this out when he went through it, and I was like, "Well, Dad, you love cigars. Is there a type of cigar you've always wanted to try that's just crazy expensive, or you just wouldn't justify buying?" It's like, oh yeah. So that's one of your 50 dreams. I want to smoke one of these types of cigars. I don't know, it costs $1,000 or whatever. That'd be cool, right? It doesn't have to be this massive thing. But the idea here is that Psalm 37:4, delight yourself in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart. 2 interpretations of that I think are both accurate if you look at the Hebrew. One is that if you delight in the Lord, then whatever you've desired in your heart, God will then grant that to you. He'll give it to you. Because the word to give can mean to bestow on or to grant, or just I'm delivering the thing you wanted. But another interpretation that's perfectly reasonable to read from the Hebrew is the word give also means to assign. The same word means to assign. Like, I assigned my daughter Chloe the name Chloe. I gave her the name Chloe. It wasn't something she wanted. It's something I gave her. I assigned to her. I assigned my kids to do clean out their bunny's cage this weekend and do the laundry. I assigned them chores. I gave them chores to do. So one reading of that passage would be, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will literally assign desires to you. So I believe that the desires you have, as long as they aren't contrary to God's laws and they aren't sinful, were put there by God. They're not random. You didn't really make them up. In fact, they're giant data points to who you are. They're giant clues as to the way God wired you. So there's no way to figure out who you are if you don't start with desire, because that's very unique. We might have some global desires. We all desire health, safety, plenty of money to do whatever we want. But that's why the list of 50, it's really important. Get down to the nitty gritty, small rando things. This isn't a bucket list. This isn't like, I got to go do these 50 things or become these 50 things. It's more of just data on yourself, some intel on yourself. So when you look at it, you go, man, I really do like the ocean. I really do like good food. I really do like project-oriented work that starts and ends. I really do like travel. I really, and so you learn something about yourself. It's incomplete. That's why it's the first step of 5, but it's the first step to better understanding yourself. And then as the book progresses, we get into vision and outcome, and we do an inner story audit. We break negative thoughts, habits, and patterns. You do all kinds. There's so much that goes on to get practical and make the life change, but you can't do any of that until you know what it is you desire. And that's where we begin.
Love it. I can tell you one thing. Right when we get off this podcast, I am heading to Amazon and getting me a copy. Because that, like, there's so much in there I resonate with, and I would love to dive deeper into. So, yeah, guys, if you're listening to this, go grab yourself a copy, especially if you're in a phase in life where it's somewhere where you need to take action on doing something that's different, than what most people think you should do or say you should do. There's so much wisdom in there. But Graham, man, it's been awesome getting to connect with you and learning a little bit more about what you've built, your perspective on branding, your perspective on pursuing passions, pursuing a more fulfilling life. If anybody here resonated with what you said, where can people follow along with what you're doing? What would you point them towards?
Yeah, all the info is at grahamcochrane.com. You can follow me on Instagram as well at the Graham Cochrane.
Awesome. Well, Graham, it's been great. I appreciate you jumping on today.
Thanks, Josh, for having me.
Awesome. Guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Take a Step podcast. Always know that no matter where you are on your growth journey, every mile begins with a step. We'll talk to you in the next episode.